Alyssa Orange here with Mike Irwin talking about some breaking news out of the NCAA today. They unanimously voted to start looking at allowing student athletes to make money off the use of their name, image, and likeness. A big deal for the NCAA, because it's something that they were so against for so long. But now you see California, Illinois, Florida, those states starting to try to pass legislation to get college players some compensation for that. Mike, your first thoughts on the NCAA's decision today?
Well, the NCAA has a history of caving in on things like this, so this doesn't surprise me. What they could have done is held their ground, said, okay, fine, we'll take it to court. And ultimately in the Supreme Court, I think they would have won, because we're talking about amateur athletes, and this certainly goes against anything that has anything to do with amateur athletics that I've ever known about. Now, what's going to happen here is that the NCAA is going to tell all of their divisions, and let's face it, the two lower divisions don't matter because it's not going to come up there. Nobody at Division II or III is going to, get a big contract. I just can't imagine that for their likeness. So we're talking Division I, and they're going to go in and say, okay, come up with some rules here. Let's make this work. And what they've sort of given them is a guideline of do this, but still preserve this amateur athlete thing. Well, that's going to be hard to do. But one way it could be done is to allow schools, let's just use the University of Arkansas for example, and you have a popular quarterback, and this is not a good time to discuss this because there aren't, but you have O'Grady right now. He's probably the guy that has the biggest upside with the fans, but at any given time there's a player or two that would be hot. Sure.
Well, you look at maybe like a Tyler Wilson's number 8 jersey, or even an Alex Collins number 3 jersey. We saw a lot of those when those guys were in school.
So the school is openly encouraged to go ahead and make money by printing up T-shirts, all kinds of warm-up jackets, anything that would have their likenesses on there. But the school sells it or allows other marketers to sell it, but they take the money that they get and they don't spend it on the athletic department per se. They take that money and share it with all of their student athletes. There's about 450 of them at most schools. And so if you've generated $600,000 from 400 student athletes, or let's say maybe 800, that'd be $2,000 extra a year that you're adding on top of this cost of attendance scholarship, where you're giving athletes extra money. And you could do that and still, it would be an amateur type thing, because you're not allowing a specific athlete to benefit. They're all doing it, and it's all being shared. Now, this is something I'm basically against because it's kind of socialism. But when it comes to amateur athletes, I believe that's true. Now, if it's in the NFL, I'd be opposed to it. I'm absolutely fine in the NFL with some big name guy getting to endorse products. But you're not a professional athlete here. So it's going to be interesting how they end up trying to make this work. But here's the issue if you don't do it that way. Let's say they go ahead and just the school says, well, we're going to stay out of it. We'll just let your star quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, let's say you go out and just let him do this on his own. Well, they're not going to let him have agents, even though the California bill says that. That's not going to stand. I don't think it's going to fly. So you're not going to let them have agents. So they have to do that on their own. So what, their dad's going to do it, or they're going to negotiate the contract? And here's the issue. You got one guy on your football team that's getting $600,000 this year, and the offensive linemen that block for him get nothing. I don't think so. That's not going to go well. That's not going to play well.
You're going to have to look into that so it doesn't cause some rifts. I made the joke as we were talking about it earlier. Well, you see all these quarterbacks in the NFL buying their offensive linemen scooters and stuff as presents, as a thank you, because they understand that they're the ones helping them out and helping them look so good. You also look at this too, and it's a conversation, especially as a female. The female athletes, when you look at it, you've got football and basketball are probably going to be your big money makers.
Right.
Some baseball players, and track. A lot of money that people don't understand. Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Saucony. A lot of track athletes might get some deals. There's a lot of other athletes. Soccer, basketball. You've got swimming, tennis, and how does that affect these smaller sports that don't make as much revenue?
Well, they won't get it. Nobody will benefit from that. You could possibly have an NCAA champion as a junior. It could be a female or a male, And so they know that this person is going to be a professional athlete and probably an Olympian. It's not unheard of for somebody still at the college level to go to the Olympics and win a medal. So let's say you did that and you had another year of eligibility. Yeah, you're going to make some money off that because there's money in pro sports, so in pro track. But there's just not money in maybe a little bit in soccer.
Maybe.
Possibly.
But not in like swimming
Tennis,
and diving.
You're going to have a tennis player.
Gymnastics.
Hey, here's me with my tennis racket. I just don't see that. So again, it's this inequality. It's this guy or this girl over here, they make a lot of money and nobody else makes it. There was an incident that happened here years ago at this school where supposedly, I'm not saying this happened, I heard it happened, but there was an athlete who supposedly got shoe money, and the other guys on the team knew that guy got shoe money, and they started getting really mad and started complaining about it, and all of a sudden there's a big change going on there, like you don't have people there anymore and the coach is not there anymore. So this is what happens. You get this, when do I get my money? What the heck's going on here? That's just our world that we live in.
It's very interesting, and again, a lot of these likeness, name stuff, what California did, the school, necessarily for California's law, the school would not be paying these athletes. They would be outside endorsers that do not conflict with the school's endorsements that they currently have in place. For example, Arkansas athletes, if this were to stand, could not go and do things with Coca-Cola because they are a Pepsi school, or do things with Adidas or Under Armour because they're a Nike school. So it would be more about brands that don't involve Arkansas right now being able to do stuff with their athletes. So it's very interesting, and again, we could go around and around about it, but for the NCAA to make this decision on Tuesday, a very resounding, surprising decision for the future of college athletics, to see where that goes and then where they find that line between being a pro and being a collegiate athlete.
And like a lot of things that happen where the NCAA is involved, where it starts from is their own fault. Because this all started years ago when the NCAA was allowing likenesses of athletes to go into these video games. There was a time when you could get an NCAA football, and when you went to Arkansas, you could clearly see that was Matt Jones. They didn't call him Matt Jones, but it was his number. It was his face, kind of. It was his big 6'6" body.
Sure.
So,
everything was the same.
The school, the NCAA was making money off this product, and nothing was going to the athletes. And so there was a lawsuit out there in California. That's where all lawsuits start, right, in California. And a couple of UCLA guys went, wait a minute, this is unfair, and they filed a lawsuit. And that's where this all started, and it's been going on ever since. So they have nobody to blame but themselves because they started this.
You know what's interesting, and you see a lot of former athletes on Twitter tweeting about, well, the coach's family gets to fly wherever they want to on a private jet, and I had to fill out an NCAA form when a non-direct family member bought me dinner. You know, it's stuff like that where the NCAA has really dug themselves a hole, it seems like, to now where they're trying to play catch up, and just kind of like the transfer rule, we're going to have to see this red shirt rule, this 4 games, we're going to have to see where this goes, because they started that 4-game red shirt rule with no intention of this transfer portal being created the way that it turned into.
And the history of all these things is the NCAA is slowly caving in on this stuff. That's what the cost of attendance scholarship is. It addresses this idea that in the old days, yeah, you got room and board, but you didn't get to eat on Sunday. We were on your own on Sunday because the cafeteria was closed that you were in. And, you didn't have, in some cases, there wasn't enough money available for the apartment rents in the area if you wanted to rent an apartment. There were all kinds of issues. I've known athletes, I'll just tell you, I've talked to athletes at Arkansas in years past who came out early and went to either the NBA, NFL, or whatever, and you're talking to them and you ask, why did you do this? And they're going, I'm broke. I have a roof over my head and I have like food, but I'm living pretty much, there are other kids on this team that have parents that got money and they've got money to run around and have fun and go on dates, and I can't do that because I got no money. The first kid that ever came out early was a running back right when Jack Crow took the job. And I went to him and asked him, because he was the first one that ever bypassed his senior year in football. And I said, why are you doing this? And he said, if I could take you back to my hometown and show you how my mother and 2 sisters live, he said, at least I've got a roof over my head that doesn't leak. And it's warm in the winter and cool in the summer. They live in a shack. And I've got to make some money to get them out of that. So these are some of the things that athletes deal with. We all think that they've got it made because they got a scholarship. Well, this is why the NCAA caved in, began to come into the real world and say, okay, we've got to change this. So this is just another version of that. But the issue is, in the long term, how does it change? I don't believe they're going to just say, okay, you can go get an agent and just start making money off of it. There's got to be more to it than that.
It'll be interesting to see how this develops in the coming months and years. Thanks for watching. Alyssa Orange here with Mike Irwin.